Welcome to Talking with Tech. I'm your host, Rachel Madel, joined as always by Chris Bouguet. Hey, Chris, what's up?
Contain my excitement. You and I, we are presenting here today. We're recording right now, but in a few hours, we'll be back together because we're presenting this presentation together on coaching. It's a multi-part series, but this is a two-part, right? This is because it's 2 hours? I don't know. Tell us about it, Rachel. Tell me about it.
Oh, I'm so excited, Chris. So, Chris, you and I have presented on coaching 1 hour, which we realized was definitely not enough time. Not enough time. So we've built out a 2-hour coaching course with a focus on remote coaching because a lot of people are still doing virtual learning and working via telepractice. And so what better topic to deep dive in than coaching? Because as we know, coaching communication partners is the path to success when you're working with AAC learners. And I'm really pumped because we have been working hard on this, Chris. We've gotten together a few times, brainstormed. I've gone through hours of my sessions, trying to find really good clips to share. So there's a lot of videos of my sessions coaching families. There's some clips of us, Chris, together coaching other clinicians, people who have reached out to us, who listen to the podcast, who are like, I have this issue or this question or this problem. So I'm really excited because I feel like we have a lot of really great content to share. And what I'm most excited about is that it's going to be really interactive. And I love the continuing ed where you're a part of it and you're brainstorming, you're troubleshooting, you're participating. And so that's what I'm most excited about because I feel like there's going to be a ton of audience participation because we have a lot of kind of exercises to kind of teach people systematically how to coach communication partners. So they're actually going to be practicing coaching.
Exciting. One of the biggest fears I have lately is that we as a society will not learn or take our lessons that we've learned from COVID and distance learning. And there's a lot of conversation that I hear about going back. Oh, we're going back to the classroom. We're going back. It's like, I don't want to go back. I want to go forward. And going forward means learning from the lessons that we've taken away from this distance learning experience that we've all had. And one of those big things, a big takeaway is the idea that now many people have these skills about how to use this technology, the technology that you and I have been using you and I together have been using 3 years, at least 3 years, but we've been using even before that, before we knew each other. Now everyone knows these skills. People know about Zoom and Google Meet and how to have a video conference. And it's not just with a weird Skype thing you do with your friends or you do with your family once a year. Now it's just part of how you do it. And now we can take these tech skills that people have learned and mesh it with this idea of coaching, which was really even just starting to flesh itself out in person. But we can immediately move to this using coaching in a remote or distance learning environment and help families drive. Just super excited about that.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we've been cornered as a profession. Now we have to coach, right? So everybody who was like, I don't really know about that. It's like, oh no, like that's all I have in a lot of ways. And so I feel like it's been really good. And something we talk about in our course, Chris, is that this is a lifelong pursuit. It's not like magically you decide one day you're going to start coaching and then all of a sudden you're a great, perfect coach that it's something that evolves over time. And the more you think about coaching and the more that you coach, the more that you think back on how you could have coached differently. It's kind of like a matrixy thing. Like I'm like coaching people and then I watch my videos back and, I watch how I was coaching. And so it's just such a cool process. And I kind of liken it to mindfulness in a lot of ways. Chris, a few years ago, I've been meditating for, I'd say like 10 years at least. But a few years ago, I decided to do an intensive course through UCLA. And it was a mindfulness class. And so it like kind of, I committed to a 3-hour class once a week. There was always homework and exercises I had to do. And what that did for me was it took my meditation game and my mindfulness to the next level. accountable because it was intensive, right? I was like going every week. I had homework to do. If I didn't do the homework, I felt super guilty. So like I was accountable. And so I feel like it's kind of similar to that. The more I've been doing coaching during this time, the more I've been thinking about coaching. I've kind of immersed myself in coaching, and it's awesome because I feel like I'm constantly becoming better at it. And it's something that isn't necessarily a skill that just happens overnight. It's something that you have to practice in order to get better and better. And even when you feel like you're a strong coach, I mean, I still watch my sessions back and be like, I was consulting there. I wasn't coaching. Man, like I totally could have asked a reflective question there. And instead, I just told her what to do.
This is coaching itself and AAC are both things, or helping other people learn AAC is something that you just continue to grow with, and that it just never ends. It just continues to evolve, and you can continue to hone your skills and continue to get better. So I really can't wait to do this with you too. The presentation, we always have fun presenting together. At least, well, I won't speak for you. I always have fun presenting with you. I think it's a great back and forth that we've developed over the years. So I think it's going to be a super fun time today.
It's kind of just feels like an extension of the podcast in a lot of ways. I'm just like, you start talking and then I'll just like chime in with a joke, and then I'll start talking and you'll like chime in with a prank, and it just feels like I'm right at home.
That we're doing this, kind of kicking this off in this particular month because this is AAC Awareness Month. And so I'm just curious, what kind of things do you or we have popping off for AAC Awareness Month?
Well, I have to tell you, Chris, that I had this realization, I guess it was September 30th, the day before AAC Awareness Month started. We've been planning as my team, what are we going to do for AAC Awareness Month? What are we going to show? What are we going to post? How are we going to build awareness? And I had the realization, wow, like I'm doing all of this work for my, business page, which obviously I have a lot of people who follow me who want to know about AAC and love AAC and are passionate about it. But it's kind of like those are the people that don't really need the awareness. Exactly. They are aware. So anyway, I've decided for this year that I'm really going to spend some time on my personal social media. So last week, I think it was, I posted a video that we had posted on my business page, which is just an AAC awareness video that we created with an interview with one of my clients talking about how AAC has really changed. She has twins with autism who are non-speaking and have been using a device for a few years now, and it's been a game changer. So anyway, I feel like it's important to think about how can we reach people who know nothing about AAC? How can we reach people who, when you say AAC, people are like, huh? What's that? It's like those are the people that we need to be teaching about augmentative alternative communication. And so I would encourage everyone who's listening to kind of think through that lens. And to be honest, I hadn't thought about it. I mean, I've been celebrating AAC Awareness Month for years now. And it was like just this year that I was like, wow, I really need to do a better job of educating my friends and my family because they don't even know really what I do and kind of the work that I do. They know I'm a speech therapist, but it's like I have a very specific area of speech therapy that I work in, and it's been really fun. And actually, I've been having a lot of really great conversations from posting on my personal social media. For example, someone who is kind of like a peripheral friend on social media reached out and was talking about her mom who has ALS. And she was like, she's about to lose her voice. Is this something that would be good for her? I was like, yes. Like, let's get it started now. And then of course I talked to her about voice banking and all of these things. And so it's like a perfect example of how, just taking some time to talk to your friends and family about AAC, can be really powerful.
I think it's funny as well, except not necessarily with my friends and family, but more of a close to home sort of approach. I get to write. It's called the Inclusive Technology Spotlight, and it's just a portion of a larger newsletter that goes out in our school district. And this, the very first one I got last October, and of course I focused it on AAC and this whole initiative that our school district was doing around coaching and partner augmented input. Well, this year, it's like, okay, what do I spotlight this year? And so what I'm spotlighting for AAC Awareness in this communique, this brochure that actually gets posted on our website as well, is our new website. We launched a new website in our school district. It's bit.ly/LCPSAAC. So if you go to bit.ly/LCPSAAC, you can see our website, which doesn't, the idea to go there and kind of check it out is that we had this notion of how do we keep the information tight? That was the words we used when we were putting it together. It's like, what do parents need to know now that could get them up and running? And so I'd be curious when people go and they investigate that website. We may use a Google site and put it together with a couple short, one of the videos that you made about the core words is on there. Yeah, look at you blushing.
Thank you. Who, me, Chris?
Is not to make it this giant, robust, every resource you could ever find with AAC, but essentially, I know nothing, or I just know a little bit. What can I do? Or I've been relying on my teachers to help teach my child, and there hasn't been a lot of back and forth necessarily. Maybe there has been, but with this website was developed out of the. We always kind of wanted to make this website, but it really forced us to do it a lot quicker when COVID hit. And so that's what it was meant to do. So anyway, I got to write a little, post about this in our communique and kind of show off this website. And then the other thing in that brochure, something that happened in our local school district, is one of our schools, an autism teacher, worked a little bit with me, a little bit with one of my colleagues, and we brainstormed putting together a playground board. The autism teacher really wanted to do this, and she got our input on it. And so there's pictures there of this board that she actually got through and got funding for. And so there's some strategies around that as well. So super excited to kind of show off what's happening in our local area, as opposed to try and do something super huge and global.
I love this. I can't wait to check this website out. I think you might have shown it to me at one point, Chris. Did you show it to me?
Make sure that we were keeping it tight. And, it's one of those things where you work on something and you get too close to it, and you think it's perfect, and you don't know until you get someone else to put their eyeballs or earballs on it to go, yeah, no, Chris, you're fine. You know what I mean? So I probably did send it to you at one point to just say, hey, can you check this out and see how far off the...
Yeah, speaking of that, actually, so we just released a brand new resource on my website. It's called AAC Vocabulary Bundle, and that's exactly what I did, because I oftentimes, before we release any type of product, I go through so many iterations. I use it. I have my clinicians use it. I'm like, give me feedback. But for this one specifically, I actually reached out to some other people in the field who are AAC people, and they were nice enough to give me feedback. Kara Walton, who we had on our podcast, she was one of the people that I reached out to. A lot of other clinicians, and they all gave me really great feedback. And I'm like, this is something I should be doing more of. I tend to keep it internal within my team, but it's really nice to get perspectives from people who are outside of your small circle, right? Because the people around us tend to be very similar to us. And so it was something that just dawned on me this kind of go around, and I'm so happy that I did. Super excited about this resource, Chris. It's like one of my favorite things. So essentially, in a short little synopsis of what it is, it's a packet of basically like handouts that you can talk through with parents on figuring out what vocabulary to target when you're either starting off with a new client who's using AAC. I oftentimes will use this during my consultations with families, because we're talking about, what words are they saying most frequently? What phrases are they saying most frequently? What are their top motivators? What core words are they already using, or core word phrases? What nouns do they use? what kinds of nonverbal communication are they using. So there's lots of different checklists and boxes to fill out. It's super easy to do digitally. And so there's that. And then we also kind of revamped and did a least to most prompting hierarchy, kind of simplified it a little bit, because it's been my experience that communication partners, typically parents, are like, what is this? When I share a prompting hierarchy, they're like, I'm not sure what an indirect verbal prompt is. And so I made the language super simple. It's still color coded in a similar way. And I did a really short kind of explanation of each level of the prompting hierarchy. So I'm really excited about this resource. Got tons of great feedback. We just launched it yesterday, and so many people have been like, oh my gosh, this looks so great, or I already bought it. So it's fun when you create a resource. It takes months and months of trying it, changing it. I have to shout out to my team, because I'm the most annoying person to work for. I'm like, oh, you see that line? I don't want that line there. And then 24 hours later, I'm like, actually, I think we need that line back. So I have to give a big shout out to them, because they're just so patient with me, and I have a lot of attention to detail. So
I'm super excited about is this song that you wrote and that you're going to perform for us right now for Aac Awareness. I think it's going to be, you ready? And a 1, and a 2, and a...
And I'm definitely not singing. Nobody wants me to sing, trust me. But this does lead us into our interview today, Chris.
Today, you and I are not singing on this podcast, but we do have Stephen Kneece on this podcast. He's the interview coming up. Stephen Kneece and I met in South Carolina. I was one of the presenters at the SCSHA conference, which was just before COVID happened. I was one of the last presentations I got to do live. And so he was one of the people that helped put that conference together. In fact, he's going to explain it all in the interview, so I won't get into it now. But and then he when we were talking, he's like, yeah, I do this YouTube channel. It's called Speech Pathology Songs, and I was like, wait a second. I know you. I've seen this resource before. So without further ado, let's listen to my interview with Stephen Kneece and sing along. Hey there! If you love listening to this podcast, we would be so grateful for your support to keep it going. By becoming a Patreon member, you can not only help us cover the cost of this podcast, but you can get some really great bonus content as well. We post video tutorials, behind-the-scenes recordings, and bonus segments from our interviews. We would love for you to join us by going to patreon.com/talkingwithtech. Welcome to Talking with Tech. My name is Chris Bouguet, and I'm here with Stephen Kneece. How's it going, Stephen?
It's going pretty good, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for being here. So, full disclosure, we're recording from our homes during the pandemic. And Stephen, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Sure. So I'm Stephen Kneece, as you said. I'm a speech-language pathologist and an assistive technology consultant. I work for Aiken County Public Schools, and that is in South Carolina. I'm also an adjunct instructor at the University of South Carolina. So that's a new position for me. I'm teaching a graduate level AAC course this fall. That is the first time I'm doing that. So I'm learning on the job right now. And I am the President-Elect for SCSHA, and that is the South Carolina Speech Language Hearing Association. And that's where I saw you February. It seems like 3 years ago, but February, just a few months ago. And you came and spoke at our convention this past year. And I'm also the CEO and founder of Speech and Language Songs, which is kind of my little side project.
I think we are very similar in that way with these side projects like podcasts and you doing the songs. And
I guess we get bored and want to do some other interesting things all the time.
Absolutely, and feel like this value, like there's a place this can help, right? I mean, we're going to get into those songs here in a little bit because I want to hear all about that side project. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I follow you on Twitter, and I've seen your YouTube videos, and so I'm sure other people have as well. But those that haven't, we want to tell everyone about it. But let's start with the AAC stuff. Sure. And although they're related, don't get me wrong, but your day-to-day jobs. So let's talk about so here we are. ramping up. The time of this recording, it's just before school is about to start. So it's sort of end of the summer, beginning of school. And so let's say pre-COVID, what did AAC look like in your neck of the woods and your responsibilities? And then let's talk about when COVID struck and the closures. And then what are you anticipating coming up?
Right. So before this, and I'm basically an AAC consultant this entire time, regardless of the situation. But to begin with, before all of this, I was very present in schools, in classrooms. So I would do a big part of what I was doing was push in lessons. So it was kind of like a model lesson, but we would also talk to teachers and SLPs about different aspects like aided language input and modeling and prompting and things like that. So we had that as an opportunity to check in with a lot of these kids and see how the teams were doing. But we would also do a lesson, which of course included music as well, into it. So we would do that. And so that's the big difference is prior to all of this, I was very present, speaking and seeing a lot of people interacting with a lot of students as well as the teams. And so that has changed. So when it hit at the end of last school year, we really were scrambling, of course. So the main priority was to get the equipment where it needed to be first. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not the most important thing. I know you hear people talk about AAC is like, if you just hand them a device, that's not going to teach them how to do it. But at that moment, it was a lot of users that were already using it for a while. It's like, we just need to make sure they have it. Mm-hmm. And then so that was the first run. So I was running around to schools, finding the devices in the classrooms or where they were in the schools because nobody was really there. There was some admin there, but nobody was there. So I was emailing people, was like, what cabinet was it in? And things like that. So we would grab those. Luckily, we had some teachers and SLPs that were on it. So before they even went, and we already dismissed, they knew, and they were like, can we go ahead and give it to them? I was like, absolutely. Thank you for thinking of that before I thought of that. So that I was just running and then taking it to the homes, which is kind of neat because I got to see some kiddos at home and they're just like, why are you here? So, and excited to see me, but also kind of confused at the same time. So that was pretty neat. So we did that. And then after that, it was really kind of doing some parent coaching, talking to them on the phone or Zoom, depending on what the capabilities they had, and giving them some pointers on how to get through the rest of the school year, as well as consulting with a lot of the SLPs and teachers. And I work closely with another SLP that does AAC stuff. So we created a bunch of videos too of us like modeling and playing music and doing things like that. So we did a bunch of different things, but it didn't really feel very organized or well thought out at the end of the school year. So leading into this school year is kind of like, okay, let's have a much clearer game plan. And I think we do. We feel a lot better about it. A lot of teletherapy that's much more structured. And also I'm going to be or here's the plan at least. We'll see if it works out. But I'm going to be teaming up with all these SLPs, kind of dropping in on all of their teletherapy sessions with the AAC kiddos, and we'll do some parent coaching in that aspect. At least that's the plan. We'll see how all that goes, or if it changes in another month, probably. But we're trying to just remain flexible and just kind of get it done the best we can.
Well, people have heard me say this multiple times on this podcast, but I think that is exactly the game plan that we should be going with. It's so exciting to hear that this is exactly what you were thinking, and that you're not only did it at the end of the year with the parent coaching, but now are purposely planning for it. Just curious, did you have any experiences where either it was really negative or really positive, where parents were like, well, we didn't know, but now we know because you coached us through it. I'm curious if there was any like wow moments there.
I think really the only negatives was the not showing up or not answering or not being able to communicate. So nobody was really resistant if we actually talked to them. But some were just extremely difficult to get in touch with.
Sure.
And that could be a myriad of reasons. They're working 2 jobs and they have 5 children or something like that. And it's just impossible for them to handle this task at this moment, which is completely understandable. And then the positives of just having really good conversations and way more communication than we have ever had with parents, so and as a consultant too, that's kind of bebopping between many different schools. Most of the time, I'm not really connecting with the parent at all. So we did a little more of that. Like I said, going to the home and kind of seeing them as kind of a good connection to kind of started off, even though we were very distant and there was no contact at all, but still seeing these parents and then having those conversations was very powerful. And to be honest with you, I think it's going to change the way we do things from now on. Like this is a way bigger bang for our buck than what we were doing. So it's really kind of turning everything on its head and like, why did I not think of this before?
Yeah.
Like when it wasn't forced, we could have been doing something like this. So parent coaching, huge. And I hope we do a better job this school year with it than we did at the end of last school year.
So let's talk about one of your other jobs, which is being an adjunct instructor. So you said you kind of recently you haven't started teaching. You haven't started yet. You're about to.
I'm about to. So Tuesday. So by the time this comes out, I would imagine I will already be teaching. But so next Tuesday, it's Thursday right now. So next Tuesday, so we're almost there. That's going to be my first class, first lecture. So I was supposed to do this in person as well. So this was going to be my first course I've ever taught in this capacity. So that was kind of a big thing. And then we're like, okay, now we have to switch it to virtual. And that's a whole nother beast, another challenge in and of itself. So I've learned a lot. So figuring out, and we use Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. It's like we're using, so we're on Zoom right now using Blackboard Collaborate Ultra for that, and then for our school district it's Microsoft Teams. So it's like everything that we're doing is a different format. So that's been kind of interesting to just learn that software and do that, and just how to structure it and try to make it engaging. I've done some things that I think are going to be engaging. We'll see if everyone else agrees with that. So doing and I found like the Kahoot and a Mentimeter. Those things, and there's some cool features within Blackboard that you can utilize too. So just getting prepared, and I'm not sure if so we have a South Carolina Assistive Technology program within our state ran by Dr. Carol Page, and she taught the class previously, and so she has helped me a ton with resources. She's made it way easier than it would have been if I just had a blank slate.
Yeah,
so she helped me a ton. So there's a lot of that too. I'm reading the books that they're going to have to read and like creating tests and things like that. So, and also just learning stuff about my other job. I was like, oh, okay, we need to apply this. Why have we not been doing this? Something that you kind of missed out on or forgot about just in the recesses of your brain.
Yeah, totally.
Brings it back to it. So
do you feel like, do you know who they are yet? Are they undergrads? Are they graduate students? Are they people that are out in the workforce and coming back and they're kind of doing this as a new job? Is it a whole mixed bag?
So they're all graduate students, and most of them are not, like, they aren't SLPAs or SLTs that we're continuing. Most of them are not. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I don't really know anything about anybody. We just, I got their emails literally probably 2 hours ago and sent them all an email saying, hey, this is, trying to help them orient to this weird situation too. So I really don't know anything about any of them. But we're going to be learning. But I do know they are grad students in their second year. So they're this is their last year of grad school. So they've been there and done that a good bit. They're already doing clinical externships. And I'm not even sure what that looks like, to be honest with you, for them right now. But they're doing some form of rotation. So they have a good bit of knowledge under their belts already, which is good.
It's great. It sounds so exciting. I mean, something, again, we've talked on this podcast many times is the need for not just AAC instruction at pre-service level, but quality and quantity. And it sounds like you've tried to make it a really engaging experience, because it could be like, show up and listen to me talk, but you can tell that's not your style, right? So,
yeah, I hope not. I hope they don't think that.
All right. So before we get into the songs, because you had mentioned it a couple of times how like you'd show up and you would do some modeling and you do the singing and kind of make it a fun experience. Let's talk about your work with SCSHA. So You said you're President-Elect. What does that mean? What's that all about? What's that look like for you?
Sure. So SCSHA, South Carolina Speech Language Hearing Association, that's our state association for SLPs and audiologists. Each state has one. It's kind of like the little brother and sister of ASHA, I guess. We do that. So I was kind of into advocacy stuff, like since I graduated. I don't know why exactly, but just something that was always of interest to me. So I started in the VP of Membership and Outreach position a few years ago. And then when that kind of ran out and there was an opening to, vie for the president position, I went for that. And so then you go through this whole thing, you're PEE, which is President-Elect for 1 year, then you're President-Elect for 1 year. That's where I currently am. Next year, so once you're in, you're kind of in it for like 4 or 5 years. So next year will be president, and then past president after that. And one interesting thing that we're doing right now is switching over. We're trying to cancel the convention because we had an in-person convention. It's not until February, but we're trying to do that, switch over to a virtual format and figuring out what that looks like, because these are things we've never done before as a state association. So that's been very challenging. But I mean, it's kind of fun too, because it's kind of a little bit of an adventure. So it's going to be way different than when you were with us this past year. It's going to be a completely different thing. So how do we do the exhibit hall? Because we want to try to have exhibitors a part of it, sponsors a part of it. How do we make it enticing? How do we get people to come speak and make that fun and an enjoyable experience just for our membership, people within the state, so they don't feel like they were kind of left out of something that they normally get every year. So we're working through that right now. That's kind of our big thing. And then we have some big advocacy efforts coming down. We did a universal licensure, which really had a lot to do with working in the schools and not having to hold your C's, your LLR license, as well as a educator certificate, not having to juggle all three of those. So we're still working through that right now currently. And then after we kind of get all of that ironed out, which will make it easier for people to hire within the schools, a much efficient process, we were going to look at the interstate compact and trying to jump on board with that. I know that's kind of been more of a hot button issue for like ASHA is kind of pushing it now, and only a handful of states are there. So we want to jump on that and be a part of that push, because I think that's just good for the speech pathology profession. Seems like a no-brainer, but going through and having the lobbyists push things, and it just takes time.
It takes time. Yeah. Well, that sounds awesome. Let me ask you, in your conversations, going back to the conference for a second, what's something you think will be, completely different, or at least a part of a conversation that you've been having about, okay, how would we do this thing that we want to do in a virtual way? Do you have any tips or tricks? Because I bet you there's people listening going, yeah, we're doing that too, and wherever we are,
Yeah, and honestly, we are in the early stages. I really just been brainstorming and throwing things in Google Docs to share with the rest of the team and get feedback and things like that. So really, so far, it's just we're looking at 2 different strands. You can jump back and forth between the strands. We're having the exhibitors be able to, like, we'll kind of run some ad copy type thing between and in front of each session. And in the breaks, we'll have like their logos and things like streaming across. So that's one way we're trying to keep. And then we'll have like a virtual exhibit hall on the website. Again, these are just ideas. None of this come to fruition. And then trying to reach out to people that we would typically be able to get to speak because of time or distance. So we started kind of thinking about that. It's like, this person said they couldn't do it because it's just going to take way too much time to come to South Carolina. Maybe they're in California or something like that.
Right.
Get those people that never come to our conference. So now some fresh ideas, fresh faces that our membership hasn't seen. So those are some of the things that we thought about. Oh, and again, just an idea. We're talking about like doing like a little mixer, like a wine night or something like that, and be part of it too. Just be a little more fun. Hopefully, we can make all those things work, and it happens. But the 2 strands, and kind of we're trying to use Zoom and up our account so we can have that many people on at one time and have two simultaneous strands. So we have to work through that. I'm not even sure how that happens yet, but hopefully we'll know that soon.
That sounds awesome. Those sounds like a lot of great ideas. It sounds like I know how much time and effort it takes to put something like that together anyway, and then do it in a virtual space and thinking about all those sorts of things really from a participant's perspective. I think it is going to make an awesome experience. And I particularly liked the sort of social aspect of it, because I feel like that's part of so many people think a conference is about coming and getting content, but really it's the little spots in between where Stephen and I meet afterwards and I'm packing up and we're chatting and we're talking and now we're brainstorming strategies. Now we're walking down the hall together and we're connecting, and we're building our professional learning community. And so how do you do that in a virtual space? And it sounds like you're thinking that way,
Yeah, we're trying to figure it out. Yeah, because a lot of people go out to dinner afterwards, go to lunch in a long break or whatever, see people they haven't seen in years, and that's part of it, and that people look forward to it every year. So we're hoping to model that experience somewhat. It's not going to be the same.
It's not going to be the same.
It's always, none of this is the same, but hopefully it can still be fun and engaging, and we can get enough people involved to make it worthwhile.
I think it's totally possible. I think you're right on track, Stephen. I've been able to been a part of many of these. I've never had to plan one myself, but I'm part of them. And there is a spirit of like how awesome it is that you're connecting, even if it is in this virtual space. I don't think it's necessarily even a secondary thing. You know what I mean? It's just a different experience, and this is how it is, All right, so let's talk about some songs, man. It's my turn to play. Because you do speechandlanguagesongs.com, right? And you were already mentioning it in therapy. So where did it start? How did, what was your inspiration for it? And let's talk about it.
Sure. So when I started being a speech pathologist, I guess I'm going way back here. So before I went to the grad school, I had a minor in media arts, which was audio. So I did like audio design, Foley art, recording bands and things like that. Or had a minor in music, which was classical guitar, and sang in the choir. So I had all these musical aspects to it. Played in bands and worked at music stores for a little bit, and did that while I was in grad school. So as soon as I got out and started working in schools, I was using music. I was playing guitar, singing in the therapy room, and then pushing in. So that was many years ago now. So this is my 8th year within the same school district. So for a while there, I wanted to implement it in some way, and I was, but it wasn't in like a formal manner. It's like, yeah, this is just another tool that I can use for engagement. But 2 years ago now, that's where it kind of changed a little bit and became a little more focused. I started doing core vocabulary songs specifically for AAC users or kids with complex communication needs. So I was creating a little more simple, slow, and repetitive songs, but still engaging and fun. So they had the opportunity for that aided language input, or they could play along with me and kind of do it as like a core vocabulary karaoke type thing. So we started doing that in the classroom, pushing in. And one teacher, I wish I could remember which teacher asked me this, but she said, well, do you have recordings of it or a video? Because I don't see you that often. Again, I'm not in one school. I'm in a bunch of different schools. And I was like, okay, maybe I can try doing that. Have background in doing audio and media arts. So I was like, I probably can figure something out. So I created something then. It was pretty rough in comparison to the things I'm doing more so now. Like looking back 2 years ago, I was like, wow, I was really bad at that. So I started creating some videos, and not that I'm that good at it now, but started creating some videos and putting them on YouTube because it was just easier really to share. I wasn't thinking I'm going to create a YouTube channel and try to grow this thing. It was just like, here's a link. This is easier to do. Then share the video. Then, it's too large to go through your emails. Like, I don't know. So YouTube seemed like an easier way of doing it. And then they really liked it. And then I had people like watching it from other places. I guess they just happened upon it online. And then I was like, okay, maybe there's something here that's beyond just me and my schools and stuff like that. So then I started creating more and more of them, trying to get the animation and the audio quality better. That's how it kind of started going. And then now I'm just continuing and trying to make the quality and quantity, just making things better, hopefully.
So at the time of this recording, how many songs do you have on the YouTube channel, roughly?
Yeah, total, I think I have like 130 or something like that.
Wow.
So what I started doing like one a week after the first few, and then I saw some engagement from places outside of my school district. I was like, oh, this is fun, and it's not a difficult thing to do. So it's kind of like a nice hobby. It's like worst case scenario, I make all this stuff and no one really looks at it. I had fun doing it, so I was like, okay. So it's really not much of a risk here. So go ahead and do this fun thing where I get to mess around with audio equipment, and I have an excuse to buy a microphone that I can tell my wife is for a business or something. So, okay. So that made it, this guitar is for a business purpose, not so we kept going down there. So that's pretty much it.
So first of all, I really connect with your story there, because that exactly years ago when I started a podcast called the AT Tips Cast, it was the whole notion was like, well, I'm going to make stuff for teachers so I don't have to keep saying it over and over again. And while I'm doing this, well, same deal, right? Like if I sent it to them and I made a little video or a little audio clip, and it would be like, well, it's too long, or I didn't listen to it. So this will just solve me a problem. And then I came eventually to it. It wasn't like I had some sort of master plan of making this large, podcast. Same thing with talking with tech is like, well, let's just get together and record some stuff and share some ideas, and we'll see. But then from there, I've adopted since then this mentality that I feel like you have too, which is, well, if I'm going to make it, I might as well share it and make it in a way that can share it with the world, let other people benefit from it. So
and right now it's so easy to do that, with the technology, just how interconnected we are. It's not hard to do that now. It's just as hard as if I was sharing it with just my team. That seems almost even more difficult.
Do you have any stories of like people using your songs and them writing you and then telling you about it? It's that kind of stuff, like working with kids?
Yeah, sure. Honestly, that's probably one of the biggest joys is when somebody that you have no idea who they are send you a message. Or I've even had people email me pictures of them and their kids utilizing it. I'm like, whoa, that's really cool. So yeah, that's amazing. And when you hear little stories of, we use this every single day in my classroom, I'm like, what? You do? That's cool. And those little nuggets right there can last pretty far. So that can get me through another month of creating new content just because somebody, made a comment like that. Yeah. So it's really cool hearing all these stories. And unfortunately, so on YouTube, you can't make comments on content that is created for children. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a newish thing. I think it started like not this past January, but the one before that, something like that was a kind of a change. So I was getting comments on those and I was like, oh, that's really, then they kind of cut all those off. So you can only comment on like one of my videos, and that's like my explainer video, which is for adults to kind of show you how to use these things. So people just drop comments in there, but people still email me or send me messages via Instagram and things like that.
Since you're talking about that, how would people connect with you? So what is your email? What's your Instagram? What's your Twitter handle? What's the whole, give it to us all.
The whole thing? Yeah. So one of the easiest ways is going to the website. It's just speechandlanguagesongs.com. Exactly what it is. Just speechandlanguagesongs.com. And you can contact me there, but I also have the email at speechandlanguagesongs@gmail.com. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, so you can contact me there. Of course, I have a YouTube channel, and that's the kind of the biggest thing, subscribing to the YouTube channel. So more subscribers will get more viewership, then it gets shared with other people and recommended to other people. So that's pretty cool. I have a Patreon, which is really small. It's just like a $2 a month thing just to kind of keep this ship afloat, because again, I talked about musical equipment and software and things like that. It's expensive, so I try to keep things going. There's a lot of little expenses that you don't really think about until you kind of get into it. It's like, so that's just, I'm trying to keep it afloat. And I have a little merchandise where I have like t-shirts and mugs and things like that people can buy. And also have personalized songs. That's something that I created after a while. I just have one template for that, but I want to do a bunch of templates eventually when I have time, doing a bunch of different things right now. So it's hard to have the time to create all that. But so basically it's the templates, the music's already there. I ask a few questions like, what's the child's name, favorite color, favorite toy, favorite place, blah, blah, blah. They send me that, and I just intertwine that into a song, and then they can send me pictures and things like that. And then I put it in the video and send it back to them. So it's
awesome.
And it has a ton of actually it has a ton of core vocabulary within the song, because that was kind of the initial purpose, and I kind of just opened it up a little broader, like anybody who is a small child, preschooler, or somebody who has complex communication needs that is using AAC. It kind of works good for those. But those are kind of my whole spiel there. So a lot of different ways you can contact me.
Now, let me ask you, with the core vocabulary, you said you've got like over 100 videos, like you said. So that's a lot of core vocabulary. Not all of the songs are core vocabulary, but most are, right?
Yeah, most. I think I have like a little over 50 that are specifically core vocabulary, but also have articulation songs. That was kind of one of the first things I messed with after those first initial core vocabulary. I was like, ooh, artic would be a kind of a cool thing to do. Auditory bombardment and things like that.
Yeah.
So that and language songs. I've started doing some basic concept songs recently, and phonics. So I do some phonics songs as well, where you're segmenting and blending phonemes within the song. So I did that. But yeah, core vocabulary is kind of my focus. That's probably my biggest thing that I focus time on. And I do the other ones just because I find those interesting as well.
So do you besides the personalized, do you take requests like, hey, we're working on the word, blah, blah, blah. Can you create a video or a song and a video for this word,
Yeah, of course. And some of the songs that I've created were because people asked for it. Like I more recently did just a hello and goodbye, just one song for hello and one song for goodbye, because someone asked for that. And I thought it was a great idea because they wanted to kind of bookend their session. Start off with a greeting and end it with a farewell, and they wanted a little song for it. I was like, yeah, absolutely. Send me requests, and I'll be glad to do it. I don't know how timely I will be in completing it, but I'll get it done eventually.
Just to be clear, these are original songs. These are not song parodies. You're not Weird Al doing song parodies of something that already exists. You write the original music and the original songs and make the lyrics yourself, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So the only one that is a parody, I did one parody. I have no idea why I did this, but looking back, I was like, that was kind of a weird thing to do. So I did What's Core Vocabulary, and it was the parody of a Tina Turner song, What's Love Got to Do with It. So I did that. That was my only parody. And I was like, this was not a good route. Maybe I'll go back to parodies again, but yeah, you're right. Everything I just create myself.
Well, I absolutely love the songs. I love sharing them. I love using them. I think if you have not listened, you definitely need to because they're super fun. One more time, Stephen, how do people get in touch with you?
So my website, speechandlanguagesongs.com, is the best way to do it. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon. So all of those things.
Awesome. And again, I feel like we're kindred spirits doing the podcast. We have the Patreon. We want those reviews because we know that makes it easier for people to find it and it spreads the good word. We have to pay for the equipment. You see, I got my mic right here, and we need better equipment because if you looked around, it's not, but we do what we have, So yeah, so I think that support would be awesome. And so let me ask you this. I like to end interviews with what you're sort of questing after. What are you thinking about? What are you professionally curious about? Sure, we've got COVID, so that's, working with all of that. But just in general, what's got your mind reeling and you want to learn more about and you're thinking about and you're interested in?
So yeah, COVID's a big one, but I feel like I've spent a lot of time with that. So we'll kind of go back to one that I was really thinking about before all of this was Dr. Karen Erickson's work with literacy and really kind of implementing that better. We talk about it as teams and things like that. Complex communication needs, kiddos, literacy, like how do we ensure that, or how do we make it to where it's a normalcy, like it's just occurring, rather than being like a very big hurdle to cross? Because right now it seems like, that doesn't make sense, Stephen. So it seems like we're trying to do a lot of convincing. So I think that's where I'm really interested in. And this kind of made it a little harder because everything's kind of put on the back burner. We're doing things differently, but we can still do some parent coaching on that stuff. So I see an opportunity to continue doing that, but definitely literacy and AAC and where those meet and how to make that happen for kids with complex communication needs.
And so I'm super curious about that too. In fact, so just before this recording, I was saying I was in another meeting. I'm coming, Stephen, I'm running late, because the meeting I was in was with 2 reading specialists that were like, how are we going to do shared reading with communication devices in a virtual space? And so I was having that discussion, and we're putting together a little training on that, on how we could possibly do that, give people a practice opportunity. And there's lots of YouTube videos out there now of people doing, modeling on their communication device. But let me bring it to you and ask you this question in relation to music. Do you feel like there's an opportunity there? And is this what you were doing when you were jumping into sessions with kids, where there can be sort of maybe this is a hindrance. Maybe there's some research that says I shouldn't be doing this, but I still sing my ABCs. Do you know what I mean? Like there's that musical melody to reading, that fluency that comes with it. I feel like music and reading are like siblings. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. What are your thoughts and what have your experiences been?
Sure, yeah. And I know there is a connection there with music and literacy. And this has been a while since I looked at these studies, but I remember phonemic awareness and going along with the ability to like keep time or have rhythm. There was some correlation there. So I know that there's something there, and I don't, know enough about all of that, and I highly doubt it's deeply researched in that, because it's kind of a strange thing to do. But and if nothing else, the engagement factor is huge, because I feel like the vast majority of kids I interact with like music. It seems to be it's like 99% of them. Some of them are like, hey, some days nothing is going to please some children, which is certainly okay. But I feel like it's a win for a lot of children with autism that aren't tolerating much of anything. Like they don't like many activities. Music seems to still soothe them. It may be you got to find the right type of music, but music still connects. So I think the engagement part of it, in the least, is important to utilize.
Awesome. I could not agree more. I think about earworms, and as that is a strategy, like, how you get a song stuck in your head. For me, all summer long, it's been Hamilton, you know what I mean? And I walk around like the king in Hamilton singing family, but those words are in your head and they're there and they are sort of soothing, that there's a predictability to them and I enjoy them. And there's an engagement factor when I'm singing with my family. And I feel like there's even more there that we can get into and a deeper research about working with words and teaching AAC and teaching language,
Yeah. I wonder who's going to fund these studies of that would be helpful. I want to know. So that would be very helpful. But it seems like, you're right. You're repeating these things. So it's almost like you're practicing them well beyond just the session. So you're still continuing to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the research. I want to be able to do this. I'm not sure how I can do that, but that sounds fun and worthwhile.
You can challenge those new grad students you're working with to be this. This could be you. This could be your research that you're doing when you leave, because we need more people with doctorates, right? So in doing the research.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Stephen, it's been such a pleasure. I had such a blast with you in South Carolina. Thank you for having me there. And it was so great to make the connection. Me like, oh, you're the speech and language songs guy. It was such a great revelation when, because, you don't often put names to faces. You know what I mean? So it was great to be able to do that. So thank you. And thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been awesome.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
Listen carefully.
Hi, I'm Matt Hott, one of the hosts of Speech Science, a weekly podcast bringing you all the information that you can handle related to speech sciences and disabilities. Michelle Wintering, Michael McLeod, and I interview leaders and difference makers in the field. Every Tuesday, we drop a new episode. You can find us on iTunes, Android, and on our website, www.speechscience.org/Speech Science Podcast. Join us as we try to find the answers to the question,
what is communication?
You're listening to the Exceptional Podcast Network.